I'd like to introduce Tamir Berkman. His business is called Divorce Cowboy, and he works predominantly with men, helping them to navigate the emotional rapids of separation and divorce. But I'll let Tamir tell you a little bit more about that. Before I proceed, I would like to acknowledge traditional Australian elders, past, present and emerging, and welcome any First Nations people that are either here today or watching this recording. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Gunai Kurnai people in Gippsland. So Tamir, thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for having the space to share. Hi, everyone. My name is Tamir Berkman from Divorce Cowboy. I want to start by sharing my personal story, and I still remember that day when I told my partner I'm going to move out. Now, I wasn't the one initiating the separation though. So it actually took me 2 years to actually come out and say, hey, I'm going to leave. I was doing a lot of work figuring out why it took me 2 years to do that. And the reason was that I've been living in a limbo, right? I was living on the fence, later admitted as denial. And for about 2 years, we were living in the same house. And the truth is that I didn't tell my friends, I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my parents. No one knew. And I was using weed, smoking weed to escape. And the truth is that I felt deep shame around it. I felt like a failure. I was absolutely convinced that I'm a failure in life. I failed in life. And that was why I was hiding it. That was why I was escaping it. And don't want to deal with it. I was really proud with what I had, with having a family and having a partner and having a beautiful daughter. And it was really something that I had, I guess, as a badge, as part of my identity. And when that was gone, I was left with nothing, right? So surely, if this is gone, if it was my proudest achievement, and it was gone, then surely I've failed. So that was the shame. Of course, it wasn't the only feeling, right? So it was deep shame, it was anger, it was fear, it was sadness, it was guilt. And I felt all these things, but I didn't know that I was feeling them. I didn't know what I was feeling because I didn't have the tools and techniques to access my emotional space. I didn't know how to do it. And I believe most men don't know how to do it. And it's not to blame men, but we were never taught how to do that. I was never taught how to do that. And in fact, even worse, I was taught out of it. So me, as plenty of other men, were taught out of our emotional space by things like, oh, boys don't cry, vulnerability is weakness, don't show emotions, it's bad, stuff like that. So the message that I've heard since childhood is, don't go there. This is a space that is not for you. This is a space that will make you weak, or it's a place of, if you share things, you'll get hurt. So when it comes to an emotional challenge like separation, I simply didn't have the tools and techniques to deal with it. And the first time I actually went there was in a men's circle. So I was lucky enough to meet another man, an older man that went through separation, that got me into a men's circle. And I remember my second men's circle, that's when the penny dropped, and how it felt like being held by a group of men holding space for me, feeling safe, feeling that there's no judgment, and having that opportunity and the tools and techniques to start doing men's work or working on my emotional stuff. Up until then, I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have that space. I didn't have the tools and techniques. I didn't have the knowledge. And I didn't have that validation of, oh, it's okay. This is where we do. This is where you can do that. I didn't even know of a place like that. And I was 45, right? Being in that place and being held and being safe and doing that work was amazing. It was life-changing. And I remember going back home and just lying in bed and was so excited I couldn't sleep. And my thought was, oh, that's what natural high feels like, because I was so excited. It felt amazing. And I knew that this is something I'll do more of, because I want to do more, because it feels. I went back to the men's circle. I'd done the initiation thing, and I'm doing it regularly for 3 years now, for more than 3 years. And with my work now with men, I really thought about, okay, what made me go there? What was the thing or the couple of things that actually made me go, okay, I'm going to do this? And it was really coming down to 2 things. One is that the realization that what I'm doing now clearly is not working because I'm not where I wanted to be. So that's okay, it's a fact, that's reality, and I need to accept that, step out of denial. And also, I love myself enough to do something about it. I'm worth it. I'm worth the investment of the time and money and all that stuff I'm worth being held by others, being supported, getting help, getting support. And really that was the clincher. That was the point of, okay, I'm going to do something about it. That was the point I went out of denial, that things started to change, right? And about 18 months after that, the concept for Divorce Cowboy was born. So I'll just spend like maybe a minute or two just explaining why Divorce Cowboy. I do work with horses, but I remember seeing this documentary about cowboys, and it was about bull riders and how most of their job is falling off that bull. And it's a really dangerous thing. Most of their job is falling, and then they go up there and doing it again. So for me, a cowboy is someone who falls down, dusting off, and tries again. And a divorced cowboy is a man who survives and thrives through separation. So by definition, every man who's doing that is a divorced cowboy. So what do I do now? So now I'm going to complete my counseling diploma early next year. And I'm also finalizing my equine assisted learning qualification. But for now, I'm positioning myself as a separation guide. So think a life coach, lived experience. My position is like a personal trainer. And that's what I'm saying to clients. I'm going like, look, I'm a personal trainer for the emotional heavy lifting. So my job, we're not going to do therapy here. My job is to teach you the tools and techniques that helped me. When I was going through separation, I felt this and this. I didn't have any roadmap. I was lost. Here are the tools and techniques that helped me stepping out of that, all the stuff that I was feeling and unidentified stuff and blame game and all of this, and helped me to deal with it. And right now, I'm very grateful to have a really good co-parenting relationship that took hard work and took a lot of self-hard work and with her to actually get here, to do this. My job is to teach tools and techniques and to spot men while they're doing their exercises to build that muscle, to build that skill. So what I'm offering is a 7-week program, 7 Zoom sessions. For men in Melbourne, there's also a component of a paddock session. I'm going to mention later. Every week, it's an exercise book with exercises, and it's also phone, text-based support accountability. So the men are texting me going, hey, I've done this exercise. This is what I found, and I can direct them a little bit there. My vision is really to change the way we do divorce. And I'm doing it by showing men how to access their emotional superpowers. One of the biggest things I found while working with men this year is that I need to change the way I talk about this work if I want to get them on board. So the work needs to be masculine. It needs to have a specific end date. That's why the 7 weeks and the specific budget. It needs to include a component of exercising, both with me and at home. The paddock session, so there's a component of going and doing stuff, not just talking about stuff. There's also doing, spending time outside. And there's also difference in the way I talk about it, so the language I'm talking about. So that's why it's a personal trainer and heavy lifting and emotional superpowers. I found that when I was going through it, a lot of the times what I've heard is, oh, I don't want to just sit there and talk about my emotions. That seems maybe like feminine. Everyone is a masculine and a feminine, right? But it seems like, oh, it's not for me. So I started talking about it a little bit differently. Okay, so what about, we're not going to talk just about emotion, we're going to take responsibility for emotion. Okay, that sounds pretty more direct focused, right? Doing stuff, taking responsibility, a little bit maybe more on the masculine side. I started talking about how being the boss of my emotions. So instead of letting anger control me, I can control the anger. I can do stuff. I can manage the anger. And that's what I'm teaching. So it's what I do. It's also how I do it, that it's very much more of a masculine approach. Maybe it's more like men are learning. Men like to learn by doing and by completing things. So that's what I'm trying to do. Cool.
Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point? There's shared a bit there.
Let's have a look.
Yeah. We're having a bit of a chat. I asked if anyone's aware of other men's circles, because that sounds interesting. I think, who was it? Sally Ann shared a resource. Who was organising the men's circle you went to?
The main circle that I'm going to regularly is called MKP, Mankind Project.
Okay, yeah.
International non-profit working with men to, really bring men together to talk about these things.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. Anyone? Yep, Bonnie, you look like you're trying to find your mute button.
I was trying to find the hand button. I was like, so would you, I guess I often refer my clients off to specialist services before I will actually do mediation to make sure they're ready for mediation. So as a mediator, I've got to make sure the clients have capacity to be able to negotiate on their own. So do you think that it's better to, when we're assessing men, I've got a twofold question, to suggest that they engage with you or a men's circle before they go through mediation? Like usually when I refer people off to the Parenting Together Apart mob, I wait until she signals they're ready for mediation. And do you work with mediators in that vein to say, okay, I think he's ready to engage now? Because I really don't want to, like, the whole point of mediation is to collaborate and cooperate. And if you're not in a headspace to do that, I don't want to force that through, right? Like, it's totally inappropriate. So what would you recommend in terms of approaching men from that perspective? And more importantly, like how the heck we do pretty in-depth safety screening, but what are some of the key things we need to look for as mediators to know that a man might not be in a good headspace? Like the obvious ones, I've had guys crying and I'm like, okay, we need to take a deep breath here and take a different path. But there are a lot of guys who will put on a strong face, and I suspect they're really hurting deep inside. Like, how do I get to that? How do I open that? How do I build the rapport and get to that point where I can make that referral then?
Yeah. Thanks. So the first question was, I guess the answer is the sooner the better. I see men in every sport and on that spectrum and every stage of a breakdown of the relationship or the separation. And at every one of these stages, men are hurting even before that, but they just don't know it, right? Because they can't access what's wrong. And they never spend the time doing it, and they don't know how to. So the sooner men can actually do the work and start, even if it's just the first session, if it's just like the first thing, identifying my emotions, giving a name to what I feel is an amazing eye-opener. Men always remember the first session because it was the first time they were held in a safe space to identify what they're feeling. Yeah, the sooner the better. And I guess when men are coming to see a mediator, absolutely they're hurting because they were hurting far before they came to see a mediator. And they were hurting even in denial, even when they're saying, oh, I'm totally okay with it and putting on a brave face. So I think unless a man is totally aware and can identify and take responsibility for their emotions, thoughts, and actions, they are in a place that needs support.
I dropped the Why Men Divorce Badly document into the chat, but I'm thinking your healthy separation agreement highlights a little bit about that, of not rushing too much. I'm not sure if I'm probably pushing you ahead of where you wanted to.
No, that's great. I'm happy to go there. Like, it's something that when I started to work on my own business documents, I felt, wow, what can be really helpful in this space is if the two people can agree on a 3-month, like a timeout or a grace period. Just saying, look, we've been married for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's a long time. Now, finally, one of us said, let's finish with it. Let's separate. At least let's build in a bit of a buffer time to work things out and to make sure that, not that we want to get together again, let's make sure that we're safe moving forward. Both of us are in a safe space moving forward emotionally and mentally, because this is going to be hard, right? Even if it's amicable, it's going to be really hard and challenging for both of us, for the kids, for our communities, for our parents, for everyone. Can we just take 3 months off? And in these 3 months, allowing ourselves to do stuff that will strengthen us enough to actually face that storm and be okay on the other side. And especially, I think, as a man that was, I was the dumpee, right? So my partner chose to initiate the separation. We know that we're in 2 different places on the grieving cycle, right? She's already there. I didn't even start. So let me have 3 months to maybe work with a coach, maybe get some self-awareness, maybe identify some challenges, maybe build some tools and techniques into what I'm doing, into my routine. Starting to slowly letting go, maybe first of all, of social media. So let's do that first of all, and let's agree on how we're doing it. So it's a very much of a way of not rushing into things and making things more collaborative even before we go to a lawyer or before we start mediation, because that will just mean better process for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks. What you're saying is fantastic, Tamir. Thank you. I just want to be a little bit personal. How was your wife, partner, able to take on what you were doing? Was that person in your life able to be cooperative in moving forward?
Yes, she was. That's the short answer.
Mm.
And look, it's not an easy road, but it was easier because I had the tools. So I knew what to say, how to communicate. I didn't do it perfectly, not at all. But I was doing stuff and then learning how to do it better and then learning how to do this better and all the time improving really on myself, really much about her, but about myself to get a better result. So a good example will be that I'm a recovering people pleaser. And that's one of the things that I found out about myself during this process. Okay, so if it's about me, then what can I do to step out of this shadow behavior? And that will automatically make her act in a different way that will not trigger me or make me go back to that behavior. So on the ground, what I've done is, for example, one of the things I've done is to, instead of my default being yes to every single request that she's making, like I used to do in the 10 years that we were together and after as well, I started with a new default. I said, from now on, I'm going to say, let me think about it. And that will give me the 24 hours I need, or the 5 hours I need, or the hour I need to check in with myself, check my intention, check that shadow, make sure I'm not operating from that. And then after I've done this work, I've got the awareness, I've done the work, how do I communicate this work? How do I tell her that I'm going to start responding in a totally different way to her requests? So she won't feel like, oh, Tamir is being like really unreasonable now. No, so I told her, listen, I found out that I'm a people pleaser. This is what it's about. I'm trying to get better and not to operate from that position. What I'm going to do now is for every one of your requests, I will say, I'm going to think about it. That's not because I don't like you. It's not because I want to harm you. It's not because I'm going to definitely say no. I just would like some time to think about it. And please, I'll appreciate if you can help me do that. That's it. After 2 weeks of saying, I'm going to think about it, she started approaching every single request with, please think about it.
Great.
So the answer was me. The answer was changing what I'm doing. It wasn't about her. If I can actually get to the point, to the really the essence of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and do the work on myself, my world will change automatically.
Yeah, we teach people how to treat us. Yeah, it's a great example. I'm sure very helpful. And so there was a message from one of our family barristers who, in the context of people already in court at hearing stage, the men often come across as really angry and vindictive. Or probably everyone, but we're talking about men at the moment. I don't know, do you work with people that far along in their separation, or tend to try and get people earlier?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's really interesting how I judge anger and how we as a society like judging men who seem angry, right? First of all, what I know is that what I believe is that as a society, we let we tell men that they can feel one of two feelings, either joy or anger. Other than that, everything else is really off the table, right? There's not many men that will go on and say, I feel shameful or guilty or sad, right? That would be really not manly. And they will be judged for that. But then we also judge men that are angry. And anger is just another feeling, right? It's just a feeling. It's just a guide. I don't necessarily want to act on anger. So I'm not saying violence is a good thing, right? Because that's acting on anger. But as a feeling, it's okay to feel angry. That's what I tell my kid when she's angry, right? I'm saying, it's okay to feel angry. It's just another feeling. You can then do the work and say, oh, okay, why am I feeling angry? What's behind that anger? How can I sit with it? How can I be the manager here and not go there? To be honest, I was angry. To be honest, sometimes I'm going, of course you'll be angry. If your partner is now taking the kids and goes somewhere else and not following court orders, I'll be angry too. But I'm trying to restrict my judgment and to go, first of all, it's a feeling. Let's work with the feeling. Of course, we don't want the feeling to manage us. Of course, I don't want to act based on it. So yeah, vindictive is probably another thing to work on. Okay, yeah, so I think original name for this chat was Why Do Men Divorce Badly? And obviously I don't mean that men actually divorce worse or that women don't divorce badly. I think we're doing divorce wrong, but men have specific challenges. And because separation is an emotional challenge, men don't have the tools to deal with it. If separation was a legal challenge or a financial challenge, then men will be great at it, but it's not. If men can figure out the emotional side, the legal and mediation and financial side will be a lot easier for everyone. It's the emotions that come in the way, right, of the process. So we know that 70% of separation are initiated by women. Men, in some cases, are caught off guard. And I'm talking really about three pains of separation that I see repeating all the time. One is the emotional roller coaster. That is feeling all the feelings, but not knowing what to do with them or not knowing how to identify them. That's really not a good headspace to be. There's something called a hypervigilance roller coaster, that in teaching the police, like how to keep into your optimal window, and everything that happens above that window is aggressive maybe, and wanting to run away, or what's happening under that window is depression and sadness and all that sort of stuff. So really how to identify that and being in my emotional optimal window, because then I can communicate, I can relax, I can think, right? My rational mind is working. So that emotional roller coaster is a big thing to tackle. The second thing is the blame game or the victimhood that happens around separation, especially when the partner is the one initiating it. It's very easy for men, I think, to fall back into the position of, oh, I did everything, I was the provider, and look what she did to me now. She's the wrong person, she's in the wrong, she broke our family, it's her fault, all that stuff. And I went through that stage myself. It's very easy because it looks like it's the truth, right? She actually initiated the separation. I didn't do it. I wanted to figure this out, but it's not. I need to take responsibility for 50% of my separation, like I was 50% of the relationship. And the third pain point that I see is the identity crisis. And that's something that I was not even thinking about until I noticed that every time that my kid went to sleep at her mom's, I used to get really emotional and really sad and like grieving. And I realized that my role, my identity as a dad is being compromised. And thinking, oh, okay, if my kid is not with me 50% of the time, am I 50% dad? Or if she's not with me, am I still a dad? So that really honed in on that identity crisis and how to deal with it, right? A lot of my identity was external. It was the provider, the family man, the dad, the whatever I did for work, the marketing person, the nice guy, right? That's the people pleaser. But a lot of it wasn't authentic. A lot of my identity wasn't authentic and real and truthful. And what was it really about? So I needed to deal with that as well. So if there are any questions about that, I'm happy to answer. If not, we're just going to jump to this infographic of the study from New Zealand. Yeah, women aren't allowed to be angry. That's right. We all get being judged by our emotions. I'll share my screen. Here we go. See if you can also see this.
Yeah, that's coming through.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so this is research from Nurit Zuberi from New Zealand. She's a mediator and researcher, family dispute resolution provider. And this is just an infographic based on her research. You can definitely find more about this on her LinkedIn, or I think we can share something.
We've actually got her speaking for the International Mediation Awareness Week, so on Friday the 11th, so we'll be able to dig deeper into this. And thank you for introducing me to that from you. So thank you.
Yeah, this is just what I took with her permission from that study. And this is what she found out about men going through mediation, what their challenges are. For example, the powerlessness, not having control. And this is something that is really different than the relationship, right? Because in a lot of relationship, men were feeling in control or in their power. Suddenly, there is no control, and usually that shift of power or control. No support system. Absolutely, I found that. I was pretty lost. Usually, men will lose friends as well as part of the separation. It's really hard to make new friends as a man. And even with my friends, I couldn't talk because they didn't really get it. If they didn't go to separation, or even if they did go to separation, but their case was a bit different, I used to get unsolicited advice that I didn't really want, and that wasn't actually good advice. Getting the right support system is tricky. Escapes and substances, absolutely. That was my tool. That was what I knew on how to deal with stuff. Drinks, smoke, get into the car and do a drive at night with the music on. That's what I did. Fatherhood in question, absolutely. I questioned that. I was lucky enough that I was a very involved dad, so I knew what to do with my daughter, which was 3 years old. Like, I was feeling very comfortable, but even with that, I questioned my fatherhood. Grief and depression, absolutely. I'm not sure. I guess I was a little bit depressed, but with grief, I didn't even recognize that. I don't think a lot of men are recognizing even that they're grieving or they need to grieve, and definitely not how to do grief, right? How to get through it, or what are the options? Is there a menu of how to do grief? So that's definitely part of the sessions that I'm doing with men. One of the sessions is about grief. and how to do it, and everybody doing it in their own way. But here's a menu. Here's something that you can try, some things you can try and see how it sits with you. And what's the purpose of grief? How to create that honoring of the past and letting it go so I can step into the future. Then the system bias and society's mixed messages. I'm not going to talk a lot about these. Yeah, they're big issues, and I'm just mindful of time. And I think that Nurith is going to talk about it more in her session. I'm sure it'll be really interesting. Are there any questions around this? If not, I'll just share. I had a couple of options regarding sharing what I'm doing with men, but just looking at the time, I want to have some time for questions at the end. So what I'm talking a lot with men in the first session is about that emotional awareness. So the first session is that's teaching them the skill to identify that, and it's called a check-in. And I'm sure some of you know about this, but it's really about that grounding exercise, feeling into the body, starting to notice any changes, any discomfort, any pain, any muscles, any things that is hurting, and then breathing into it and finding out if there's any emotions that are correlating with physical sensations. And then bringing up, is there a color? Is there a shape that is connected to it? And then taking it out of myself and then starting to work with it, starting to work with that specific emotion. After that, and men always tell me this is like an amazing session for them. And after that, they're doing it every single day for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks until it becomes a habit or a tool that they can just use, and they don't need the 20 minutes of doing that. They can just access it in 5 minutes and go, oh, okay, let's see. Okay, take a big breath. I'm feeling anger. It's a red ball of fire. I'm holding it in my hand. Now I can actually deal with it. It's not me. It's the anger. What is it telling me? What do I want to do? I have a choice here. I'll just finish up maybe just talking for a couple of minutes about the paddock session. It's my happy place. So that's where I'm going when I need to be happy, I guess, and to really connect to myself. The paddock session starts even before the session starts. So when men are driving there, it's a beautiful spot in Dunman Ranges. They tell me, oh, even driving here feels great because it takes them out of their world. They're coming into nature. We're stepping into the paddock. It's got nature elements, got grass, it's got horses, it's got the wind, it's got the trees, it's got air. What it doesn't have is phones and other people and work and responsibilities. Suddenly, the chessboard has changed. There's no more things lying on it. It's like, okay, it's your thing. What would you like to do? It's your choice. And some men are going, oh, let's go there, let's go here, let's climb that hill. And after climbing a hill with a man and maybe sweating it a little bit, or battling the wind, or having to put on our things and rug up because it's so cold and it's raining, amazing things happen at the top of that hill, because then there's a release and there's a bond. So I find that a lot of the major breakthroughs come at the paddock or just after the paddock, when they say, oh, I remember what we've done on the top of that hill. I done it again and the penny dropped. And then there are the horses, which are a whole other thing, but just a big animal that can hold space, that can talk very emotionally. It's a mirror, so it's not coming from a person, so there is no judgment with the horse. It's just like, hey, the horse doesn't want to come with you. Why? Or something else. They don't hold in grudge. They don't have agendas. They're just authentic. So there's a lot to learn from them in the interaction. Yeah, so if anyone have any questions, I'll be happy to answer and have a discussion.
Yeah, Debbie?
Hi, Joanne. Hi, Tamir. That's really fascinating. I've got a couple of comments with you. I'm a family law barrister, so I see people right at the pointy end when I see the worst of the worst. And a lot of people are sent off to anger management programs and change behaviour programs, which I don't think really do anything very much. And the problem is that people are very, very angry, very vindictive, often have nothing whatsoever good to say about their former partner. And again, I just want to emphasise, I have a very limited perspective because it's the worst of the worst. So I'm just wondering, have you made any approach to the courts to work in with men who would otherwise, let me go back a step, have you worked with men who have been through anger management or change behaviour programs? And if, how does yours obviously differs and sounds much better, if I might say so. And if you have been worked with them, how do you orient them, get them into the space where they're going to be accepting of what you do? Because a lot of them will say, I don't need to go because I haven't done anything. That's the first thing. It's all made up. It's all made up. I didn't do anything. She's only doing this to get an advantage in the family court proceedings. Sometimes this happens to be true, I might say, but mostly it's not. There certainly are cases where it's either entirely fabricated or significantly embellished. But putting those aside, I don't want to go on for too long, but if you have worked with those, how do you get them into the space when they're actually, where it's going to do some good?
Yeah, thank you. I haven't worked with those, I want to say, kind of men. I worked with men that are angry, sure. I worked with men that were offered somewhere at a specific point to go into this anger management space or course. It's interesting, like I was thinking, I heard a lot of men saying not so positive things about these courses. And I think one of the things that comes up to me is I can't convince anyone to do the work. And a lot of the times, if I didn't get anything at a specific place, it's because I didn't want to be there. So if men don't want to be in this course but are somehow forced to do it, but they still believe that they've done nothing wrong, they don't take responsibility, they don't have any other tools and techniques to maybe step them into the work, then yeah, nothing's going to work. I remember when I first started, there were two things that I needed to say and believe and think before I did the work. One is, this doesn't work. I need to change because obviously it doesn't work. It's not working for me. So I need to change. And the second thing is, I love myself enough to invest in that. So I see a lot of men saying, oh, I know I need to change, but I don't have any money right now. Okay, so that's, hey, I realize I need to change, great, but I don't love myself enough to put that as a priority right now.
And perhaps things like men's circles and other things that might just open the lid a little bit to get them in the right headspace can help, or group work and things.
Yeah. I think it's about putting options out there for men, right? Hey, there is the anger management thing. Hey, there is counseling. There is psychologists. There is that divorce cowboy. There is men's circles. You can choose. You have options. Choose one.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions or thoughts? We've got about 10 minutes left. Yep, Esther.
Hi, Tamir. Thank you for that, and nice to see everybody. So I'm a financial advisor, and when I see people, typically I will see someone who's doing a little bit of separation or divorce homework before they actually even let their partner know that's what they want to do, typically women. And then it's a matter of, okay, how they haven't even landed it on their husbands yet or partners. You've already raised it, but it's just how they can give, say, your details or resources to their partners, so it can be as amicable as possible. But then let's take this all the way down the other end now, is how do you go to somebody who's carried a lot of the negativity for years and years? Because I've seen situations, again, with clients, colleagues, friends. Your kids will grow up, but there are some things you can do two of, but you can't have two events for a grandchild, etc. And then 20 years later, you find yourself back in a room with someone you've managed to avoid for that many years, and they're still carrying all that negativity. And you're the last person you're going to take any advice from. I'm like, seriously, you have not gotten over this yet? Like, how many years am I going to be the bad person that destroyed your life? And they've lost along the way. It's so unfortunate for them, what they've lost. And I actually, while you've been doing this session, I've given your details to a friend of mine who does run a men's circle. So I hope he'll reach out to you.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's just, you don't have to answer necessarily, it's just an observation. And yeah, it's just a shame that these resources can't get to the people who need them. People just carrying through so many years of their lives. You just wonder, besides the relationships with their own children that they've missed out on, how much they've just missed out on life in general by carrying that negativity with them. Insane.
Yeah, it's sad that they didn't find a way to actually do the work.
And that's the message. It is work. You have to do the work.
I just think it's how we manage it, how we get the support, how we enable our children to get that support as well. And obviously with you, Tamir, people are coming to you because they genuinely do want the support and they want change in their life and they want to be that person, to be the supportive person for their children and to be a supportive person in some degree to the co-parent. But again, you've got to realise that there are going to be some that just want to be miserable.
We're a group of predominantly mediators, and mediators work in the middle. We don't work with extreme people at the high end, you know, where they're using violence or they're using the system to hurt each. And we don't work with the ones on the really low end who can sort it out themselves. But the ones in the middle, if we can divert them down a path of being able to work towards having amicable co-parenting, the more of those we get on that path, the less they're going to go on that escalation path. Any other questions, Bonnie? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say, I think, and I've been thinking about this more, and when I find time to revamp my website, I'll get around to this, but providing our clients with resources at that very early stage. And I'm talking about when they're when they're trying to book in a pre-mediation appointment, and throwing these resources for mental health support into the email, because then they don't have to feel like I'm judging them if I'm talking about it or anything like that. It's just, and hey, if you're having a difficult time with this, maybe have a look at blah 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 blah. And I think more and more that's the approach I've been using, is just as early as possible, get people hooked in. That's why I often send people off to Jeannie before I will even consider doing mediation with them, because I don't want them in my room until they've calmed down. It makes my life so much easier. It's all about me.
This has been fabulous. Thank you, Tamir. And I really value and appreciate how honest and emotionally vulnerable you've been with us. So you're obviously willing and able to show a really great example for other men as well. I can just imagine how you talked about you valuing having that safe and held space, and I really think that's what you provide for others. You definitely should be commended for that. So
Thank you, Joanne. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for everyone for just coming in and having a chat.
but I've planned a couple of other sessions with Tamir, one that we're promoting out to men, so men going through separation and divorce, to talk about and introduce them to this sort of work and options that are available, and also one for women to help them to try and understand some of what might be going on with their men. So
will you send an out to even the mediator network, just social media, like what to post this on your social media, and can you send this out to your email list? Because I think like we can utilize our resources very effectively that way. Please.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.